While I was doing fencing today, I was really trimming crap out of the way so I could get to the fence. You have a lot of time to think when you do that. And I was like, how many pairs of pliers did I try and cutters before I really figured out what worked? So I've been doing mesh fence. I have 60-inch 2x4 mesh in the back behind the barn in the paddock, and then I am putting 48-inch field fence out in the field around the outside. And so you have to wrap those, and I'll put a clip in there of what I'm talking about. You have to trim them out, and you have to wrap them around. And so there's a lot of cutting, and there's a lot of plier manipulation. And so I haven't built fence in years. The last time I built fence, it was barbed wire, and it was just straight run, right? So this is fairly new to me, and I've been kind of figuring out through YouTube and local sources. And anyway, I figured it out, but it was pretty brutal along the way. The first thing that I really wanted was smaller snips, something that was easier to carry, that I could snip through the wire. The heaviest wire that I have out here is 9-gauge high tensile, and that's some pretty heavy duty stuff. Everything else is smaller. The top and the bottom wires on most of your wire mesh is 9-gauge, and it can be brutal to get through, right? But the rest of it is usually lighter. It's usually 12.5 or 12, and you should be able to use hand snips to get through that. But I just couldn't find any. So I was using these, okay? This is what I was using for the majority of the cutting and the work. These are Craftsman, these are Linesman pliers, and they're still, I'm gonna ruin it for you right now. They're still my favorite, okay? And I'll tell you why. But I was using these, and it's just kind of a pain in the ass to do snip after snip when you need the snipper right here at the tip instead of back here, especially when you're cutting your verticals on the mesh wire. A lot of them, they're not wrap-ins. They're actually just got a piece that wraps around it, and you have to snip it and pop them loose. So I was really looking for something that had really strong tips that was small, right? So this is the first one that I got. These are made by Crescent, and as you can see, they didn't survive. They didn't survive about an hour, I think, maybe, and then they were shit done. So they are really decent dikes, but they're not up to the task of the heavy duty wire. They were the size I wanted, is just they're not strong enough, right? So then I went and got some, these are some Ace Hardware, made in China, Hootie Whatsits, and broke the tips, okay? So brokey tippy part 2. So I was like, screw that, I'm done with this. I got fence to build. So I went to these work. I actually, believe it or not, have a little bit of a ding. Oops, sorry. I have a little bit of a ding right here in the tip. But these still work. It didn't break, it was just cut wrong. So if I cut these flat, they'd still be fine. I just need to regrind them a little bit. But these will cut. These will cut everything short of, I don't know, some of the smaller locks it'll cut. Probably like the larger hardened locks, maybe you wouldn't be able to get through with this. But they're pretty tough, okay? Ultimately, I went back and I looked at a dozen different videos made by companies and fencing companies that were showing you how to put up fence. And I started to slow stuff down and stop to figure out what the hell they were using, because they kept using something that looked like linesman pliers, but they're using them on the tip. And this is what I found. I found that they're using these right here. Okay, so these are Nipex. These are made in Germany. They are tough, okay? I've been using these for hundreds and hundreds of yards of fence, and I have not broken them yet. And I've been definitely trying. Okay, so these do work. They're not made in America. They're made in Germany. That's all right. I can live with that. These bad boys are tough. I have cut 9-gauge wire with these by hand. Okay, they'll do it. These are hardcore. Okay, so they're not the cheapest things in the world. They're worth every penny. Stop dicking around with the other stuff. If you want a good hand cutter, this is it. Okay, so I'm building fence, right? You need fencing pliers. Well, so fencing pliers are a master of all, or sorry, jack of all, but not a master of anything. You have cutters right here on both sides. You have a little small hammer face. You have a U-nail remover, and then you have a U-nail holder and also remover and crimper. Okay, so this works for a whole bunch of different things. It's kind of a jack of all trades tool, and I hate it. It's good for one thing. It's good for removing the U-shaped nails. So if you're removing U-shaped nails like this, okay, and you're trying to pull them out of there, you can't use a normal hammer, really. It doesn't work. So you need to have something that you can get in there and remove these with. And this is it. This is the tool for that. And that's why it's out here, because that's what I use it solely for, is to remove those U-nails. You can use it to hold them too. I've seen pictures of it. So you don't hit your fingers. So you can hold on to them like this, okay? So as you're pounding on it with a hammer, you're not smashing your fingers. I just smash my fingers, I don't know, whatever. So linesman pliers. So these are the ones I've been using pretty much the whole time, right? And like I said, these are still my favorite, okay? But maybe somebody else is building something better. So I tried these right here. This is Klein Tools, okay? And Klein Tools rusted really easy. It does have some really nice benefits though. The knurling right here on the face of the gripping head is really aggressive and sharp, okay? I like that a lot. If you're grabbing wire and you're pulling on it, this stuff grabs onto it and it won't slip. Also really sharp, nice and smooth. They have really good machining. They are not stainless steel. They're made out of probably chrome moly steel of some sort, 4140, 4130 maybe. But not my favorite, and I'll explain why here in a minute. So this is the one that my wife likes right here. So this is Crescent, okay? So, and the Crescent has a little bit smaller head to it. It doesn't have as aggressive and knurling, but it's still decent, okay? Nice and sharp, and it cuts, right? And I'll explain why she likes these in a minute too. So I'll put the link for the company that makes these in there. You're not gonna find these anywhere else in the United States. Here, North Central Missouri, these are made by a saddle maker up here, and then they're sold in one of the local hardware stores. And that local hardware store is slowly kind of going away. The guy who owned it passed away a couple months ago. This is the only place in the world that I've found that makes these, right? So this is the sidebar, by the way. So it makes these, okay? So this one's got the crescent wrench with the pliers, and then this one's got crescent wrench, pliers, and then you can put a flashlight, you can put screwdriver, small screwdriver, or you can put, like my wife here, she's got her Leatherman tool in it, okay? So you can put all kinds of stuff in these. They're made by a saddle maker. They're super high quality. The stitching's really tough. The one that I use the most, I have wet formed, and then I went back and I oiled it down with Obanoffs. It's amazing, I'm telling you. Anyway, okay, linesman pliers. What's the biggest difference? The biggest difference is the width of these handles and the dimensions, okay? So of all of these, the Kleins are the biggest, and I don't know if you can see this, but they are slightly bigger than the Crescent when it comes to the width of the bow right here, okay? How you doing, girls? So this one's a little bit flatter and a little bit smaller in the inner diameter. So the channel locks are the smallest of all three. So they also have a little bit more length to them. Okay. They also have a little bit more length to them, and you can see that there's, when you look at it real close, you can see that there's red, right? You can see dimensionally this one, the red one's a little bit bigger than the channel lock. The channel lock's also a little bit longer, and it's a little bit tighter here. What does that mean? It's easier for you to squeeze your hand, okay? You can get more squeeze into this. If you're trying to squeeze your hands all the way out here versus here, this, I can bend these handles. Up here, nope, forget about it. I've lost that leverage, okay? What I don't like about these is that the head doesn't come all the way flat on the top, okay? The cutters do, but the knurling doesn't. On the Crescent, they do. It's really tight, okay? And that's why I keep going back to these. They're slightly bigger. I like the handle on these, but the head on this works just a little bit better for me. So I kind of live with the slightly larger handle, okay? But my wife's hands are a lot smaller, and this one's easier for her to deal with. So, normal pliers, okay? What I would consider normal pliers. So, normal pliers work like this. You can pop them loose and then they're bigger. This is what I grew up with on the farm. This is what we had on the farm when I was growing up, is stuff like this. So it's just 2 channels. Most of them were John Deere's when I was growing up that didn't have any of the dip handles. Dip handles came out and everybody was like, holy crap, this is super fancy. Nowadays it's just normal, right? So these usually stay in my tractor. So these are Wild, W-I-L-D-E, and they are flush. So you don't have any screws sticking out past the side, okay? They also have a small opening and a large opening, okay? So you have a small opening and a large opening, and then the head fits flush on the top. So also the handles are nice and close together, so you can get really good grip on this, okay? Very good grip on this. And then they slip in and out of the tool pouches really easy. So this is what I normally wear when I'm not fencing and I have stuff to fix. Because now I have a pair of pliers and now I have a 6-inch crescent wrench, okay? Sorry about that. The UPS guy showed up, so I had to go sign for some packages. So these are the ones that I find semi-useful to have around, but I don't keep them on a regular basis. The old pliers, they're pretty sloppy, so they help sometimes, and if you need something in a rush, they're great to just toss into vehicles, or like I said, I put these in the tractor. So these are great for grabbing things because of the way that the head moves, right? A little bit different. But overall, I don't really get a huge amount of utility out of these. I absolutely love these. I am remiss to not have a set of these in a vehicle. I carry a pair in my truck. I carry a pair in the tractor. Sometimes I'll carry them in the Kubota, like I'm working on fence. Gotta have it, okay? So the biggest thing about these is that these will grab a nut, okay, without coming back here and getting an entire set of box wrenchers or whatever. I can use this in most places to just grab a nut or a bolt head and hold it in place as I'm tightening it down. Okay, so really super versatile. Gotta love them. And then this is what I carry in both my truck and in the tractor. These are really general purpose. Crescent, hammer, nail remover, bludgeoning device, whatever. It's good for a lot of stuff. So I usually keep this, and I keep this in the tractor pretty much at all times. The reason being is I can get a hold of hydraulic lines and pop them loose and bleed them if I need to, if they get hot and they won't pop back in place and I can't get them to recapture right here. So gotta have them. So I have multiple sets of these in various vehicles because it's just easier to have a bunch of them, and they're fairly inexpensive instead of running around trying to find your tools. So building fence for gates. So general purpose all the time. I usually just carry them. Linesman pliers. I just not a big fan of the fence pliers. They're big, they're bulky. You can't put them on your belt unless you got a big huge tool belt. Screw that. The Nip-X. So with those tools, I do 90% of the work, 95% of the work, and then I'll pull these out just to remove staples. And that's really, before you spend your money on a whole bunch of tools, spend them on the ones that you know that'll work. Not all of them will fit everyone the same. If you're a big dude, so these Kleins might be a better choice for you just because you've got bigger hands and they're just gonna work better for you. But you got small, dainty little hands, like a 5'2", half Scotch, half Irish woman. Okay, so they'll work, but some work better than others when it comes to how well or how useful they are. Figure out which ones work the best for you and come up with a system. But for me, linesman pliers that fit you, Nip-X, so a good crescent wrench and some good channels. You'll get the majority of your fencing done with that right there. Now, if you got to cut the 9-gauge all the time, that's pretty badass. You just keep these with you, okay? But short of that, the other hand tools will get you there.